Fanteam Focus live show. There's 4 of us on today. We got Josh, last year's winner. We got Jack. We got Sean. We'll start off with Josh. How are you doing, mate?
Had to come off mute. How's it going, Reece? You okay? I'm splendid, thanks.
Good. Looking forward to chatting some Fanteam with us.
Yeah, always the best game. So with some good company as well. So I'm sure we'll have some fun.
Jack, he's talking about you. Excellent company as always. How are you doing?
Of course he's talking about me. I donate my money to him every week. So yeah, no, I'm doing good, mate. And it's great to have you on here, Josh, as well. I've learnt a lot of you actually playing Fanteam football, so it's good to have you on here and get some of your thoughts tonight.
We give each other the money, mate. So I give it you on some games, and you give it me on other games. So it all works out even in the end.
As it does.
And last but not least, Shawnee, how are you?
I'm not too bad, mate. Just survived the storm today. Just sort of battering down the hatches. But yeah, looking forward to sort of chatting through the fixture announcements that have come through in the last few hours to sort of try and see what impact that's going to have going forward.
Yeah, well, we got them live on screen now. I've got Ben Crellin's fixture schedule planner majiggy thing up there. Because as you say, yeah, we've had some announcements in literally the last few hours. I know you guys have spent some time thinking about it. Josh, you've been building wildcard teams already. What's your thoughts on it initially, mate?
First of all, I think it's going to have knocked quite a few people for 6 because I don't think anyone was expecting these exact fixtures to be announced. I think the general thinking was that it would be just Arsenal-Chelsea in week 28. So to have 3 different fixtures to that and then an additional 3 in 29, I think it blows the game wide open, and I think it's really, really fun in general, to be honest.
Yeah, I was reading about the Arsenal-Chelsea thing. Apparently that still could happen, still could go into 28, or it could be, is it Leicester-Chelsea or Leicester-Arsenal? One of those two, Sean? Something like that.
Yeah. I think it was, is it Lego Mane on Twitter was saying.
Yeah.
I think essentially it boils down to Leicester. If they go through on Thursday night in the Conference League, they will be playing, I think it's the following Thursday in the next round. So if they go through, I think it's potential that Chelsea Arsenal could go in. I think if Leicester do go out, but I think they're 4-1 up in the first leg. Leicester, I think, have got, with all the rearrangements, still got 3 games to rearrange. And if they go quite deep into the Conference League, then it's going to be a difficulty to try and get those games in. So, I think we'll probably know before the next deadline, hopefully. I think they'd announce it next Friday if there's going to be another fixture. So we won't know it for this one, obviously, but yeah, we'll know more maybe next Friday in terms of an extra game there.
So that's something to keep in the back of the mind, isn't it? But wow, I mean, game week 28 and game week 29, both massive doubles. I think you could describe those as. And we're talking about Fanteam today, so 1 wild card. That's the only chip we got to play with. Jack, what are you thinking about your wild card, mate?
Just before the fixtures got announced, because I tend to do things like that. I'm a bit of a madman sometimes. So I've managed to hold my wild card. I'm probably gonna use it next week, to be honest, to get ready for weeks 28 and 29. I'm quite fortunate this week because I've got a lot of Wolves players as well within my teams. I've got a lot of Liverpool players, so I shouldn't really be affected as much this week, and I can use that wild card next week to prepare for 28 and 29. So I'm quite lucky there, personally.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it personally for my own team. I mean, I did my moves last night. I bought in Podence, right? Just because, like, I got a feeling about him, right? Double game weeks and everything. So, but yeah, we'll talk about them all today. What we're gonna do, we're gonna build a wild card team together, similar to what we did last week, but we'll build it together. Josh, you've already done a couple, so it'd be interesting to get your take on it. And obviously, because of the fact we've only got 1 wild card in Fanteam, we're going to try and build it so we can navigate our way through the rest of the season, essentially. Right, Sean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like I say, we only get 1 chip. And obviously we've got doubles, but you've got the big blank currently in game week 30. So it's trying to hit your way through there. And I think they're, like, with these extra doubles that have dropped in 28 and 29, there is the potential to hopefully gain a bit of a march on the rest of the pack.
So I'll open up the screen right now, right? So I've got the Fanteam screen here now. What I have got up here, I've got 3 tabs open. So I've got the weekly monster, I've got my second chance team, and then I've got a blank like wildcard slate. I don't know if you guys have looked at the monster yet this week. Are you guys in on the monster?
Yeah, I've taken a look. Yeah, for sure.
I just built a nice little team. I found it quite easy, to be honest. I took your advice off the spaces you were on yesterday, Josh. I put Son and Kane in there straight away. I don't know if you can see this on your, if you were watching on the screen or anything, but I found it quite easy.
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah, with Son and Kane in there, I think if you commit to putting those 2 in there, you can build a really, really nice team, actually. Just because they're so cheap. They're like enabler prices, but like they're obviously premium assets in most other weeks. So I think you can build a really nice team this week as long as you commit to having those 2.
I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, so like I said, I've got 3 tabs open. I'll go straight to the... where is it? So this is my... What do you call it? My season-long team. So I'll deselect everybody. And while I'm doing that, Sean, do you want to talk us through like teams to target? Let's start off... Right, I've got a list of teams here, so we'll start off at the top of my list so I know that we've gone through everyone. Man City. Sean, what's your thoughts on Man City in terms of wildcard, selecting Man City players, etc.?
It's difficult. Obviously, they're best team in the league, you would say, up there with Liverpool in terms of consistency at the moment. But they don't double at all. They've only got single games in every week, so they don't, and they probably will blank in game week 30 unless they lose their FA Cup 5th round. So it's tricky. I think you probably can get away with 1 because you're not, unlike FPL, you're not going to be able to get double game weekers, like lots of double game weekers every week. So you're going to have to accept the fact that you might only get, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7 in each week. So you do need those players that are going to be playing consistently. And I think with Man City, like someone like Cancelo, he's probably going to play most weeks. He's one of the best defenders, if not the best defender in the game, alongside Trent. And you know that you can just have him in your team every week, and then you can move your transfers around for other double game weekers potentially. But then you are overlooking their assets in terms of the midfield, all the great midfielders they've got. And I mean, their fixtures are, you've got Tottenham, Everton, Man U, Crystal Palace, the next 4. So it's a bit mixed, but they are Man City. So I just think, can you really, I'm not going to say waste a spot for a midfielder, but I think in the second chance game, I can definitely see them being good because you can pick one and you know you're going to play one. Whereas in here, is it a risk having a Man City midfielder and then they don't play? And that's a slot you don't want too many players that are going to be rotation risks, I would say, in the season long currently.
I think that's it. I think that's a difficulty, isn't it, with Man City now going late into the Champions League, potentially having the league wrapped up early, all these other teams doubling, and Man City not doubling. What are your thoughts on that, Josh, in terms of, is it a wasted spot or is that just being ridiculous?
So I think Sean said something really good there. So I think on the second chance game, I'd be willing to keep 1 or 2 of them for sure. I think I'd even put them on a wild card on the second chance game. I think I'd still keep them. In the season long game, if you're not wild carding, I would just hold Cancelo. I wouldn't like sell him or anything like that. But I think on a wild card, if we were wild carding right now, I think I'd go with 0 Man City, and I feel pretty confident on that actually. I think there'd be too much of a worry for like week 27 specifically, where a lot of our Liverpool players blank, for example. So like, I don't think you want to be carrying Man City players into week 27 if you can help it, because as Sean said, they're just a rotation risk. And I think if we're going to be holding our Liverpool players and benching them, I think it might be a good idea to just, if we're wildcarding now, maximise double game week players for the next 4 or 5 weeks and just forego Man City and just hope the risk for the next 4 weeks or 5 weeks pays off, I think.
Josh, just with your thoughts on Cancelo there, am I mad in benching Cancelo in the season-long game for Ben White? Your thoughts on that?
No, I'd play Ben White this week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's what I've heard. I'm fully in agreement with both of you there with like the second chance game. I'm not moving my Man City assets out. But yeah, the season long game, definitely. I've benched them everywhere.
Interesting. Well, I'm happy to go with 0 Man City to start off with, guys. I'm happy to go with it, but I just don't like it. Okay, I'm letting it be known I don't like it. But we'll move on, and we'll go to Man United. Okay, that's the next team on my list. Obviously, the greatest team of all time. Sean, let's start with you.
If I was doing a wild card now, I would not have any in because they're likely to blank in 30. They're playing Liverpool. So I think it would require Liverpool to lose to Norwich, I think it is. They've got in the 5th round. So, yeah, it doesn't look like that would happen. And then next 4, Leeds this weekend is okay, as is Watford the next one. But you've then got Man City and Tottenham. And they've only got 4 games, probably only got 4 games before the international break in game week 30, where you've got some teams are going to have 7. And I just think, really, from Man U, who are you going to go for? Ronaldo, Bruno, maybe De Gea, but there are so many keepers that have got doubles, and you got Ramsdale, Sarr, people like this who have got 7 games. I wouldn't go anywhere near any of them.
I'm gonna set some rules as well, guys. Okay, so we each can have one veto, right? So if like Josh picks a player and I really don't want him, I can use my veto and that's it. No arguments. That player's gone. But you only get one, and we're all gonna get one essential pick, right? And that's the opposite to the veto. So as soon as you've used,
don't waste it, Reece. Don't waste it on a Man U player.
Ronaldo.
Don't waste it on a Man U player.
Yeah, so you get the idea. Jack, what's your thoughts on United in terms of if you're wildcarding now today, with everything we know, what are you doing?
The thoughts for Sean, to be honest. I don't want no United assets, and that does include Ronaldo. I'm afraid there's no double game weeks, like we say there. Game week 30, probably going to be a blank. Maybe Bruno. Bruno's probably the only one. If I've got Bruno in a couple of teams, then maybe just keep him. But I'm trying to pivot away from Ronaldo in most of my teams now.
Interesting, Josh.
Are we going to get kicked out if we gang up on you? I think
no.
To be honest, I think if I had them, I'd be selling them, and I think I wouldn't include them on a wild card. So I think I'd go with 0 Man U as well.
Yeah, it pains me, but we're basically Burnley at the moment, and we've got no doubles, so I can't really argue with it, unfortunately. So we've moved on.
If you've got any in the season long, you should hold them. Like at the moment, if you're not going to wild card in 26, like Bruno and Ronaldo against Leeds, I think is probably a hold. I wouldn't be looking to get him out this week. Especially, I think Cavani. It was announced Cavani's probably not fit for the weekend as well. So it looks like Ronaldo would play as well. I think there was a bit of a issue that he might not start, but I think you'd probably hold him for this week and then maybe even next week against Watford, but then look to move them on for the doubles in 28 and 29.
I agree with that. Yeah,
I think the thing is like most people need to sell them to get to Salah, though, don't they? I think so. Like, I think they're going to end up going for a lot of people, reluctantly or not reluctantly. Like, I'd love Bruno this week. I think he's got a really good chance against Leeds, but people need Salah, don't they? I think so.
It's an interesting one. What was I going to say? I can't remember. I was going to say Man United. Yeah. I think it's okay to hold them. That's what I was going to say. Like, I agreed with you guys, holding them season long, etc. It's not a like red flag. They got Leeds. Do you know what I mean? They're going to score points against Leeds, surely. But if we're on a wild card and we're building our perfect team from scratch, they probably don't find their way in with all the opportunities that are elsewhere. For me, did we go to everyone there? I think we got everyone's thoughts on that, right? Liverpool next. Let's go from the top, Joshy boy.
Yeah, this is quite an easy one as well. I think. I mean, I think on a wild card we'd have Salah and Trent and possibly Robertson as well. I think, but definitely the first two. I think with Liverpool having a double in 26 and also a double in 29, they're the ones we want to carry through. I think from now till at least then, and probably for the rest of the season. To be honest.
I got a feeling we're all going to agree on Salah and Trent. I think the third spot would probably be up for debate. Maybe Robertson. Obviously, Jota's injured now. Even Firmino. Firmino's maybe a stretch, so I suppose Robertson. What do you guys think, Jack?
I agree with what you guys already said. Just interestingly, actually, if I just purposely on my own team here, if I was to save a wild card, just want to get your thoughts on this in game week 28. I know, Josh, you've mentioned this before about triple stacking a defence. Would you triple stack the Liverpool defence in game week 28 against West Ham? And then you've got the double the week after against Brighton and Arsenal?
I think triple stacking a defence is definitely on my radar for either this week or 28 for sure. I think I just about favour Wolves. We'll come on to them in a minute, obviously, but I think I just want Salah so much, I think, and I think he'll be the captain in 29. So I think for Liverpool, I'd go double defence with Salah, and then I might even pair it with 3 Wolves defenders and just go wild that way, I think I really like that setup.
What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I think Salah and Trent are sort of essential for the start. I think, like you said, the third is probably up for the debate. More, the assets are decent, but it's more getting through 27 where they blank and then seeing what 30 would look like. Because obviously you can only, in this season, you can only roll 2 transfers. So maybe we put 2 in to start with and then see what the team looks like at 30 and then sort of work back to do it that way. Because obviously we do get 15 as well. It's not like a second chance where you only get 11 and where it's going to be a bit more trickier to sort of navigate the blank. So yeah, I think Salah and Trent are definite in the team.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I just don't want to be in danger of getting all the way to the end and then only having 2 Liverpool players and just looking silly. So don't forget that we need to come back and because I think having 3 is if we can have 3 and then maybe bench them next week. Yeah, I think it's powerful. Norwich and Leeds at home. What do you think? I think we got to get that 3rd spot, is what I'm saying. Just we got to decide who it is. Does that make sense?
The fixtures are as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say the only thing is, obviously, you're probably going to want Arsenal as well. And obviously, if Arsenal blank next week, so if you get 3 Liverpool and even 1 Arsenal, unless it's Ramsdale, in which case you could bench all 4. If you were to get an outfield Arsenal, you would then be left with 10 unless you were going to do a transfer. So you're sort of booking in a transfer. So there's that to sort of weigh up as well. But yeah.
Do you know, I think that's a great idea, which I might forget. So I'm going to put Ramsdale in straight away because that is very clever thinking there. Okay, let's move on to Chelsea. Chelsea play Crystal Palace this week and then they blank next week. Jack, your team, what do we do?
So I can tell you that now before you get going on that one. I find Chelsea so hard for fantasy just because of you get the rotation in midfield. Lukaku's not really doing it. If I want anything from Chelsea, just because of the game against Crystal Palace, is probably some of the defence, but even that's hard to judge sometimes. It's a bit like in the season-long game because it gets rotated around quite a bit as well. Yeah, it depends, doesn't it, really? Reece James comes back maybe you want some Reece James. Rudiger's probably the only solid sort of one that I know that's guaranteed to start, but I don't really want to interfere with the Chelsea midfield. It gets rotated so much outside of Jorginho, and I know Jorginho's the penalty kick taker, etc., but he's not really a great fantasy asset, is he?
Yeah, I agree. What I was going to say, Crystal Palace, right? Game week 26, Crystal Palace, blank in 27, Burnley in 28, yeah. Potentially a double in 28, and then Newcastle in 29. If today that game week 28 double was announced, for example, hypothetically, Josh, would we be thinking about Chelsea differently and trying to carry them into maybe a blank game week 27?
Yeah, I think if they had a double in 28, I think I'd maybe have 1 rather than 0. But I think with the non-double this week and the blank next week, I'll probably just carry 0 through if I was wildcarding now. And I'd be tempted if the double was announced in 28 to maybe get a couple in 28 because they do have a really good fixture run other than the blank in 30. They've got 4 or 5 really good fixtures as well as the double after 28. So I think that might be the time to jump on, I think.
I think it helps Sean avoid them that they don't really have a standout asset that's fit, do they, at the moment?
No, I mean, the ones you sort of drawn to maybe early in the season would be Mount, who's obviously now injured. Looks like he might be back for the Carabao Cup, but you don't know about that. Lukaku, gone off the boil. And then defensively, you probably go for, like you said, James or Rudiger. But again, James is injured, so there's no standout. I think giving yourself the time to 20 until 28. I think if you're wildcard in 28 and there is a double in there, I think you would go at least 2 on Chelsea. But I don't think you can really go with them in 26 purely because there's no double, there's a blank. And if you're already picking Liverpool assets and potentially Arsenal assets,
what's happened there?
You can't have more. You can't have more people carried than that. So I don't think Crystal Palace is the easiest game either. Not as easy as it used to be potentially. So I think for a wild card in 26, they're a miss.
Josh,
double does get announced, then you could maybe use one of the midfielders in the second chance game because you've obviously got the safety net. I just don't, for the season long, there's just too much rotation in the Chelsea team for my liking.
Josh, what have you done to my screen order? I can see you laughing there. You two
I haven't done
around.
anything. I just spotted it. Because I'm watching the stream live, and I'll take it. It's a good swap for me anyway. It's good for me. But yeah,
something's up there. Someone's playing silly buggers. Okay, there you go. I've switched you back around. Okay, so we've agreed on 0 Chelsea. Then I think that makes sense. Leicester are next. Very leaky at the moment. A single game week. It's a 0, isn't it? It's got to be a 0, right, Jack?
Maybe outside of Maddison, who I might take a look at, but that would be it. I'm not interested in nothing really from Leicester. Certainly not their defence.
I think it's a quick one, isn't it, Leicester boys? Just to avoid for now.
Yeah. So they're really good buys in week 30, I think, because they have a game in 30 and they've got like 3 doubles after that. So I think if you want to get on them, then Tielemans and Maddison are great buys in week 30 specifically, but that's not for 5 weeks. So we can skip Leicester on our wild card.
Yeah, we're happy with that. West Ham next. Jared Bowen, Michael Antonio. Sean, thoughts on West Ham if we were picking a wild card today?
I think they're a bit like Man City. They've got no blank apart from potentially gameweek 30, but they've got no doubles, and they've got Liverpool in the next 4 as well. I think really it's a bit like Man City. The probably only one you consider is Bowen, just because of the form he's in. He's the most informed player since Christmas on Fanteam. So I just think he's the only one to consider. You wouldn't go near them defensively because you don't know who's going to play. I think the wing backs aren't as good as they were last year. And Antonio just doesn't score. So yeah, I think Bowen would be the only one you consider. And he does have 2 decentish fixtures in 26 and 27 against Newcastle, although Wolves are decent defensively. But yeah, I think Bowen's the only one to consider there.
Josh, in the wild cards that you've picked today, is Bowen in them?
No, he's not, but he is the only one I considered exactly the same. It's just flipped again. I don't know what's going on, but yeah.
Why is it doing that?
Bowen is he's the only one from West Ham who's worth even consideration, I think. But he wasn't in any of my wild cards. No, just because I've gone for double game week players, so it's like he just misses out, unfortunately, and he'll be someone I'll probably bring back in from 31 onwards or something like that, I think.
Interesting. I'm on the fence with Bowen. What do you think, Jack?
You guys have just covered it really. Bowen's probably the only one I'd be interested in out of West Ham, and trying to get off of. I've nearly got rid of him out of most of my lineups. Antonio, trying to just get away from Antonio. They're another team that have gone off the boil a little bit. They're a bit hit and miss at the minute, West Ham. So yeah, trying to get away from their assets outside of Bowen.
I think that's Bowen out of the team, Sean, unless you've got strong feelings.
No, I don't think so. I think if he played in 30, maybe you consider it a little bit more because you knew you'd have 5 playing. But I would rather have other assets than Bowen, just for the extra games and the lack of blanks.
Let's stay with you then, Sean. Spurs. What do you think about Spurs?
Obviously, they've got next 4 game weeks. They've got 2 doubles, and if you took Manchester City out of it, you've got Burnley, Burnley, Leeds, Everton, Man United, and Brighton. I know, so Brighton are decent at the back, but the other 4, sorry to say, Reece, aren't that great defensively at the minute. So you would be looking at Kane and Son. I wouldn't look defensively at them because they started well under Conte, but they have gone off the boil recently. The thing that worries me slightly with Spurs is the fact that there's a COVID case, isn't there? It got announced in the presser today that there's a COVID case. We don't know who. The rumours are it might be Reguilon, yeah. I think, just because he wasn't pictured in training. But I like Kane and Son. I probably prefer Son just because he's cheaper. It just depends on it's not necessarily budget, it's what spots you have in midfield and who you want in midfield. So I think there are a lot of options in midfield, whereas not as many in going forward. So actually Kane could be useful. He's going to play a full 90 most weeks, so you get the 3 points there. I think he's had some ridiculous, I think he had 8 shots in his last game or something, so he does shoot a lot, which obviously all adds up on Fanteam. So I'd be happy with either of them, to be honest, Kane or Son.
Kane, you were talking about, right? This shoots a lot. I'm assuming, yeah. I was just typing something. In the chat, yeah. I think it depends. It depends on the rest of the team. Which I'd want one of them, but it depends who else we have. As to if we don't have the midfielder slot available, I would rather not have Son and put Kane up top, because I think you'll struggle for forwards more than you would midfielders. Callum in the chat says Reguilon has it. This is Spurs fan, obviously. Interesting. Josh, Kane, shots per 90, Fanteam points. Expensive though, right?
Yeah, Son's not that expensive, but Kane certainly is, as you said, yeah. I think I'd want one of them on a wild card, but I'm like Sean, I'm really not bothered which one it is. I just want one of them, I think, just to spend a bit of our funds, really. But it depends where you've got the slot left over, basically. But I think having one of them is really good. I don't think I'd want 2 of them, though. So yeah, that's how I feel about it.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think I'm the same. You want one, but I don't like it. It depends where we need to squeeze it in, right? I think I prefer Kane. I think that's what Sean was saying as well. What do you think, Jack?
The shots, like Sean was saying, I agree. I'm not overly fussed as long as we get one or the other in. I'm again the same as Sean and Josh. I defensively, Spurs, I do not want a part of any of it at the minute. They're just terrible at the back, and a lot of grumblings coming out of Tottenham with Antonio Conte. He's not a happy bunny.
Interesting stuff. So I'll put Son in there for now, and we'll just put a mental note that that's basically Son or Kane, right? But to be fair, we probably could just put Kane in there because the forwards are so bad at the moment, aren't they, in general. Arsenal next, and we'll go to Josh.
So I think Sean said something really interesting earlier. It's like you've got to almost cap the number of Liverpool plus Arsenal players you have because of week 27. Now, I think the stance I'm taking is I'd just rather have the Liverpool guys, but I think it's fine to have Trent, Salah, and one Arsenal player as well. I think an outfield player. I think that's absolutely fine to do that as well. So the ones I really like are Saka and Tierney. I think they're the 2 Arsenal players I really like. But you've got to really just weigh them up against Robertson really and see which one you prefer to have. I think out of those 3. I think
I'm just going to switch Kane for Son because Callum has just tipped it for us. I'd agree with you, Liverpool. I'd 100% prioritise the 3 Liverpool over having even one Arsenal outfielder. But I do like Saka mainly myself. Sean? Yeah,
the thing I didn't really think about when we were chatting about Liverpool was there is a risk. I don't think there's a risk that Trent is dropped for any of the 2 games this week. I think if Salah is, it doesn't matter too much. I think most people would have him. I think if you go Robertson, there is a risk that he could with the Carabao Cup. I think Tsimikas might get a start, and it might be against Leeds. Could even be against Norwich. So I think there is that risk as well. You have to weigh up. It's not unless they do have a good double, but I think because they're against two really bad teams, or effectively two really bad teams, does he use that as a chance to rest two or three players? I think Robertson could be one of those that he has rested quite a bit this season. So I think, you could probably go with two Liverpool. It's whether you then go with two Arsenal, one of them being Ramsdale. Because the thing you've got with 30 at the moment, there's only 6 teams that play. So you've got Arsenal, Villa, Leicester, Brentford, Wolves and Leeds. So you could have Ramsdale knowing that you could bench him next week if you've got another playing goalkeeper. And then you've already got the keeper sat there for 30, especially if they get a double in 28 as well. It's not the great. So they would have Watford, Chelsea in 28 potentially, and then Leicester, Liverpool. So those three, Chelsea, Leicester, Liverpool, aren't exactly the best games for a defending side. But I think with goalkeepers, you just do so well with the save points compared to sort of FPL. I don't think it matters too much as long as you don't get absolutely beaten 3-4-0. I think you're going to get at least sort of 3.5, 4 points. And obviously, if they get a clean sheet, you're looking towards sort of double figures. So I think you could go with two Arsenal here if one of them was Ramsdale as well to sort of cover you further down the line as well.
Any names?
I'm just going to look at the ownership because I imagine Saka's probably the highest owned at the moment for Arsenal. But you wouldn't go Martinelli just because he's suspended for the first game of this week.
Which is annoying because his price is so good, right, in Fanteam. It's very annoying.
Yeah, so Saka's 9.2%. If you want to go a bit different, and I think he is relatively assured of starting, especially the first one, Odegaard, he's 6.4, so he's a bit cheaper than Saka, same price as Smith Rowe. He's only 0.9% owned. So he is someone that's, I don't know how often he started in the last few weeks, but he's averaging about 5 points a game since Christmas.
He started pretty much every game because, I got him in FPL and it was a risky buy and he's played every game for me for...
I think it seems to be Saka's the main one, then it's Odegaard, and then it's Martinelli / Smith Rowe is the other.
Yeah.
So I think Odegaard, less than 1% owned, could be a really decent differential. And if you want to go really out there, it's not as lowly owned, but if you've got an issue with the striker slot, you could always look at Lacazette as well. He's averaging about the same amount of points as Odegaard as well, at about 5.3 since Christmas. So I wouldn't be too bothered about going a little bit out there for the second Arsenal outfield slot other than Saka.
We haven't even got one yet, to be honest with you. We haven't had any conviction on having one. I think, Sean, you're the only one who's pushing Arsenal, and you're pushing two Arsenal. So I don't really know what to do with this now. Josh, back to you.
I think if you look at it, I think...
Oh, Jack, we haven't heard from you, sorry, Jack, yet.
Yeah, I like Tierney. Arsenal have been pretty good defensively as of late, keeping clean sheets as well. Tierney, you get the set pieces as well from that. He's an attacking defender as well. It's Tierney for me. Josh has obviously mentioned him, and I don't mind the Ramsdale call either, Sean. These next two fixtures are quite nice as well, so this double. So yeah, I don't hate that, but obviously we've got the blank to deal with if we go Ramsdale here. But he's still quite cheap, isn't he, Ramsdale, on the seasonal?
5.3, yeah.
You could probably get him and Sarr in, couldn't you? And Sarr on the bench, or...
Yeah.
So I want to round this off. I want to stay on Arsenal a little bit longer because I think it's a key decision whether we bring that extra player in that we have to carry essentially next week, or even free transfer next week. Josh, what are your thoughts on this?
So I think if you play a wild card this week, I think you're already being very, very, very aggressive and early with it. So I would really want to roll a transfer next week. I think that would be my number one priority. So I just wouldn't be able to commit to having 4 Arsenal and Liverpool players. I think 3 is fine, and I think Tierney or Saka's really, really close. I do think they're better defensive fixtures, but I think Saka's a better asset. So I think it's really, really close on that one. But I think I like it as it looks on screen at the moment. To be honest, I think that's a really sensible way of playing, and and I think it'll still get lots of points this week.
And does that rule us out of that third Liverpool spot though? It does, right?
I think it does for me, but I think Sean's made a really good point about like future-proofing our team. And I think for 30, obviously Arsenal are much better than Liverpool because they have a game and Liverpool don't. So I think going for the 2-1 or 2-2, if we include Ramsdale, strategy might be the way to go. And to be honest, this is exactly what I've done on one of my wild cards. I've gone for literally Tierney, Trent, and Salah, and not a third Liverpool. So I think it's a viable way to go.
Sean, do you want to try and convince me before I use my veto on this one? Because I want that third Liverpool.
Who are you using the veto on?
Potentially to get rid of this Arsenal player. And just
I
have
think.
Ramsdale.
If you knew they were going to play the Liverpool, the third Liverpool, I think you'd go for it just for the fixtures. But I think there will be rotation there. So you're effectively only getting one game with a blank. And I think Arsenal, after the blank in 27, are going to have 5 fixtures before the international break, potentially, if Chelsea gets put in there. Liverpool will only have 3, maybe, if they get their FA Cup cancelled. So I just think if you look at it up until the international break, you are going to get, 7 potentially Arsenal games.
When's the international break?
Going to get maybe.
When's the international break?
Game week 30. So Game week 30 is the international break.
After 30, yeah.
So, yeah. So I think you'll probably get 7 Arsenal, and you'll only get 5 Liverpool, and you've got the risk. I don't think there's rotation risk with Tierney, whereas I think there is rotation risk with Robertson. I think he's the only third one you consider.
That's it. Veto that. Robertson over Tierney. He's coming in. I understand your point of view, but I just don't agree. I think the fixtures there, Norwich and Leeds, I think you have to have 3 Liverpool. Tierney, in my opinion...
Can I veto your veto?
Oh, shit, probably. You probably can. Okay, let me just do it first. And then you can veto it if you want. So, I think for me, yeah, that means Robertson then comes in as the third best Liverpool asset, in my opinion. I just think it came down to a straight shootout. Who's better, Robertson or Tierney? And Robertson won it for me. Jack, go on, do your worst.
No, I just I kind of what Sean says. Like, I don't like owning the 3 Liverpool there. Robertson out of that back 4 for Liverpool anyway is the one who's going to get rotated out. The highest chance of getting rotated out. Tierney, we just know he's going to play the 90 minutes. There is an injury risk with it, Tierney, though. We do have to take that into consideration. But we're getting the set pieces with Tierney. I just think you're chucking all your eggs into one basket there with the Liverpool. It's going to be hard to get off of that next week on a blank.
I just want to add one thing as well. This is just for the benefit of everyone who's watching, but Liverpool do play each of the next 5 weekends and also each of the next 4 midweeks. So they do have 9 games in 4 weeks, basically, which I'm not convinced Salah's going to start both games. I'll say it right now, to be honest. Like I think the Norwich game is prime for rotation. And I think it could be sort of any team he puts out against Norwich in midweek. That being said, if Robertson starts, he's the 3rd best asset this week behind Trent and Salah. So it's really tough. And I think it depends what your risk appetite is really for having Robertson specifically this week, I think.
Here's an interesting one that Martin in the comments just said. If we're worried about Robertson with his rotation, what about Van Dijk? He's a lot more assured in there. And he doesn't, because of the lack of bonus, he's not that far behind Robertson in points, I don't think, this season. He might even have more than him. And I can't imagine they would rotate him because I think he's just stat integral. So Van Dijk, 114. Yeah, he's scored more points than Robertson this year. So that could be a potential sort of halfway meet, really.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I can't see him getting rotated at all, right? And Josh, you're a fan of him on Fanteam, aren't you? I know that.
I think we can compromise with Van Dijk because I think he's more nailed than any of these Liverpool players, to be honest. Like we know with centre backs, they just sort of, I'm not saying, but I think they have less to do than like box to box midfielders and like even fullbacks in the modern football. So I think Van Dijk will start both games. Yeah.
Okay, so I've lost my veto. My veto is gone, boys. You've still got one veto each and one essential. Happy days. Okay, let's move on to Leeds. Leeds United. Jack, I want to start with you on this one.
That's it. That's the only Leeds player I'm interested in at all.
Who was it? Sorry.
Josh Rafinha. Josh mentioned this yesterday on his Spaces session.
Yeah.
I know he got subbed at half time, I believe. But yeah, out of the Leeds players, I want nothing to do with their defense because they leak goals for fun. But they're very good going forward. And Rafinha's at the heart of that, so he's the only one for me that I'm interested in.
I really like the look of putting Rafinha in, especially with these fixtures. Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, it seems to be a theme. There's a lot of teams like this at the moment. They've just got one player. I think we've got West Ham with Bowen. We've got Leeds with Rafinha.
Yeah.
Rafinha's got a double in 26, a double in 28, doesn't blank in 30 and doesn't blank 27 either. So he's just the perfect pick to pick on a wild card if you wild card him right now, I think. And he's a great price. I think he's just perfect.
You in agreement, Sean?
Yeah, and the game that in 29 where you've got a few doubles as well, he plays Norwich. So, yeah, as long as there is a slight doubt in the fact that he did get taken off at half-time, part of me thinks that was, although he's come out and said it was tactical, I think there was a hint of a niggle and when he was on international duty, so perhaps he is just protecting him. But yeah, I think Rafinha, I don't think you go anywhere else from Leeds. So maybe look at Meslier, but there's just a lot of keepers that have got doubles as well that you'd probably go for. So yeah, I think Rafinha.
Yeah, we have to be quite careful. Sorry, Josh, go on.
He also has good fixtures in 31 and 32. That's all I was going to say. So he's not someone we can only play till 30. Like if we're wild carding now, we preferably want players for the rest of the season, and I think his fixtures are just amazing. So yeah, your turn now, Ree. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. I was just going to mention about our second goalkeeper spot that we need to be a little bit careful about who we choose in terms of mix and matching them, i.e. like rotation with Ramsdale, if that makes any sense at all. Okay, well, I'm happy with that. I think we're looking all right, boys, right? Everton. Sean, thoughts on Everton? Frank Lampard's Everton.
I don't think it's someone you go to now, but I can't think who they've got in the FA Cup 5th round because they're playing Watford in 30, who Watford are out of the FA Cup already. So, yeah, I don't know who they have got in the 5th round.
Oren Wood, I think.
Oh, well, you would assume they'd be going through then.
I think they'll lose, to be honest.
Well, yeah. But I think you'd probably look at them maybe 29. They've got a double in 29. They've got Wolves and Newcastle at home, which is decent. And it'll give you, they've got Southampton, Man City, Tottenham, but it'll give you a bit of time to sort of see what Lampard's doing there, to know which assets to pick. And I think hopefully someone like Calvert-Lewin might sort of come back into form, and he could be a really good pick for the rest of the season because they've still got, I think after the international break, they've still got 10 games, which is, other than Leicester, is the second most in the league. And they've got decent fixtures after 30. They've got West Ham, Man U and Crystal Palace, so it's not too bad. But I don't think you'd start with any on wildcard.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Jack, what do you think about your former boss taking the reins there at Everton?
Loads of goals from set pieces because that's what Frank Lampard's teams do. I agree with what Sean said there. We're using the wild card this week. I'm not looking to bring any in, but maybe you bring Calvert-Lewin in for game week 29. Definitely, they've got the double there, haven't they? They've got Wolves and Newcastle that week, so maybe Calvert-Lewin's an option that week, but certainly not for now. I mean, Southampton are no pushovers themselves. They've been playing quite well recently. And then they've got Man City, game week 27, which is just a horrible fixture for them. So, yeah, I'm not looking to bring in any Everton player till game week 29, really.
29 is quite a good double, actually, isn't it, Josh? Wolves at home and Newcastle at home, right?
Yeah, I like the entry point of week 29. I also think you could buy in maybe 31 or 32 if you didn't want to carry him through 30 for whatever reason. And I'll add Richarlison in there. I think he's amazing, to be honest. He's like, he can just really go off in like 1 or 2 games and he'll just go wild. I don't think there's a lot in it between him and DCL because I do think Richarlison will get penalties. So I think it's really, really close between the two actually, but I'd probably just about go DCL still.
Well, I mean, that's interesting. I've got huge like scars from having Richarlison last year. I mean, holding him through blank after blank after blank. But I can see what you're thinking. I mean, under a new manager as well, maybe you play 2 up front, DCL and Richarlison. He's bagged goals in the past. Okay, Aston Villa is an interesting one. We've got a double now in 28 for Aston Villa. Southampton at home and Leeds away. Ramsey and Coutinho are 2 other players that stand out to me straight away. I know, Jack, you're probably going to talk about Digne, right? Or Dean, how do you say it? I don't know how to... Dinge or however you spell it.
I'm going to talk about Coutinho a little bit. I bought Coutinho into most of my lineups last week, and everyone told me I was mad for captaining him. I mean, he didn't have the best week, but it was better than captaining Ronaldo. Well, at one point last week, but I know he got his goal in the end. But they've got a nice run of fixtures here, haven't they? They've got Watford, Brighton, Southampton. Then they've got the double in game week 28, Southampton and Leeds. Then they've got West Ham after that, and then you've got Arsenal in game week 30. So they've got a nice run of fixtures coming up. I think you can own quite a lot of these here. Digne, Coutinho, Ramsey, Ollie Watkins. I know, Josh, you mentioned last night, didn't you, about Ollie Watkins maybe getting rotated out this week for Danny Ings. So maybe that's not an option that you use this week. But certainly Coutinho and Ramsey, I think they're now down. And Ramsey's playing really well at the minute. It's like since Coutinho's gone there, he's a changed player.
I've put Ramsey in because of the price, Sean. There can't be many better players at that price tag, do you think?
Yeah, I think you're gonna want a player that's cheap, plays most weeks, and has got potential to sort of get points, which you don't often get around that 4.5 mark. I mean, since the start of the season, I've had Norgard in a lot of them just because he plays 90, gets the occasional assist or shot on target, and just know that on a bench he's going to get you 3 points minimum sort of thing, and just keeps ticking over. I think Ramsey does that, but offers you a lot more. I think Steven Gerrard absolutely loves him. And I think there's a few players that after the performance last week, I think there's been rumours knocking about there's going to be quite a few changes to the team. So Watkins, I think, is going to be out. I think Matty Cash might not be playing. So I think he's got to rocket up a few of them. But I think Ramsey will play, and I think he's a good option to have as a bench. But then when you've got the double, so you've got 28, you've got Southampton Leeds, you play him in that, and then he plays in 30. Which I think, I love Norgard, and I think either of them works. So if you're not going to wildcard and got Norgard, I think you're fine to hold him because he just plays every week and he will play on 30. But I think if you're wildcarding now, I think you'd rather have Ramsey. He's at 4.7, so you'd spend the 0.2 extra knowing that he's going to play most weeks, plays in the blank, and offers great attacking potential. So I think Ramsey is probably, although he does take on a midfield spot, I don't think we're going to be able to afford £6-7 million midfielders across the board and have Kane and have Trent and whoever at the back. I think you're going to have a cheap player, and I think Ramsey is the perfect player, really.
Thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, I think it's a really good thing to do. I think I've put one Villa player on every bench that I built on wildcard so far. Dean and Ramsey were the 2 actually, that just because of the cheap price, like you said. It's also worth saying we're going to need Ramsey to start next week for us when these Liverpool players are on our bench. Yeah. So to include 27 in the rotation that Sean was talking about, so we're going to need to play him 3 of the next 4 weeks basically. So from 27 to 30. So I just think he's a great pick, and I think you want at least one Villa, and you probably want to buy a second in 28 to be honest for double fixture non-blank. You know what I mean, for the 3 weeks after that. So I've got my eye on Coutinho and Dean as well if we're keeping Ramsey, but I think we only want one right now.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you guys think he will? That's a good point. Like, we're relying on him to start in these kind of blank game weeks. Previously in the season, he hasn't played every single game. Are we now under the assumption that he is like nailed on in that team? Can we say that?
I think so. I think him and Dean and Coutinho, I think they're all likely to start with the information we have right now. And I think that's all we can go with. And I think all three are fine picks, to be honest.
Cool. I'm happy with that. Let's do it. Okay, Crystal Palace next. Patrick Vieira's team, a double this week against Chelsea and Watford. Then they got Burnley in game week 27. And no more doubles as far as I can see. Jack, let's have your thoughts on Crystal Palace.
Crystal Palace player. I don't really care about the double. I don't know if I've literally got no more thoughts on it. There's too much rotation with Crystal Palace as well. I don't want to own any Crystal Palace player at all. And the fixtures are not. I mean, they've got Chelsea, Watford's an okay fixture, Burnley, tough game, fighting for their lives. Wolves is a tough game. Man City after that. Yeah, I've got no interest in any Crystal Palace player whatsoever.
Strong views. Sean, what do you think?
The only thing, I think the double I don't think is too bad. You got Watford's fine. I think they'll give Chelsea a game. Obviously they haven't got Gallagher, so Gallagher can't play against his parent club in the first of the doubles. Like Jack said though, the rotation up front, I really like a Crystal Palace striker in the second chance game because they're all about the same price. But when they play, whoever plays, they do have a fair few shots on target and stuff like that. But I just think you can't pick one in the season long. Defensively, I've had Gay in a few teams. He's decent, but you're relying purely on clean sheets for that. I think the only one that would tempt me would probably be Sahar, but with a view to having him for the double in 26, having him next week against Burnley, and then maybe switching him out to a player in 28 that has a double. No, I don't. I mean, I'm looking at the fixtures straight away. I'm eyeing up Newcastle and St Maximin because he's got double in 28 and 29. But you could potentially get to the point. I think by the end, before the deadline in 28, we'll know who's playing for definite in 30. And Crystal Palace have got who have they got? Newcastle. In 30. I think Newcastle out of the cup. I can't remember.
Yeah, Newcastle up. Crystal Palace have got Stoke, right? So it's whether they lose to Stoke.
Yeah, it's one that could happen. There's a lot of games that you rely on two separate things to happen. Whereas if they lose in the fifth round, you've then got Crystal Palace versus Newcastle, and you could then still make the choice to go to St Maximin potentially, knowing that you're going to get double and then a player in 30. But yeah, it's. I mean, I'm saying that looking at that, if you're going to go for Sahar, you probably maybe go for someone like Cornet at Burnley. Because you're getting double, and then you could switch to Maximan and get double again. And then again, I don't know who Burnley have got. Burnley, Southampton. That's another possible, isn't it? It could be. But I think that's the most likely game that's going to get rearranged or kept in 30. So, yeah, you're probably looking at that. Sahar isn't too bad an option if you hold him for the next 2 weeks. But I think if you're wildcarding in 26, there's probably other options.
Yeah, I agree with what you said there about the strikers. You just can't pick them. Like you want to so much, but you just can't. Can you? What do you agree with that, Josh?
Exactly. Yeah, it's Zaha or nothing for me. Sean actually just alluded to my favourite goalkeeper pairing actually, because if you go with Pope and Dubravka, you literally get 4 doubles 4 weeks in a row. So I think that's just really nice, to be honest. And you get the free roll of maybe having a fixture in 30 as well. So. I think it was a nice thing that you mentioned there, like the 4 doubles in a row kind of thing for just one slot. I think it works really well.
That's not something I'd noticed before until you'd mentioned it there, and I didn't even notice Newcastle had doubles.
I haven't thought about it either. So do you start with Pope and Cornet, knowing you're going to get, or even Weghorst, there's a doubt he's going to play, but do you go to Burnley knowing you're getting double, and then like I said, if you switch the keepers, you don't have to do a transfer, but then do the transfer of Cornet to St Maximin, you're getting extra fixes. And you could then potentially, with 27, you could think, well, actually, I could go for 3 Liverpool and 1 Arsenal No, no. Yes, I'm playing 10, but I've got Cornet that's going to double. So you effectively got 11 anyway.
Yeah, and you could also do Weghorst to Wood as well, which I think works really well in the same way that Cornet to St Maximin. So they're both things I've considered, and I think they're both really solid for 28 onwards for 28. Yeah.
Just looking at, we're going to go on to Newcastle next. I think we decided that we can't pick Crystal Palace players. Talk to me about Dubravka then, Josh.
Yeah, he's 4.6. He's one of the cheapest playing goalkeepers, and I think with double, this is the exact time we would get him. I think for this exact sort of next 3-4 weeks, really. And the other two I like are St Maximin and Wood. I've already talked about them, and to be honest, I'm tempted to pick at least one of them from right now, just because, like, again, it's about saving transfers and stuff. I think you can easily stash Chris Wood or at St Maximin on the bench for the next few weeks, and then you have got double, which is just as good as it gets. We never get double really. So I like all three of those Newcastle players, and I think by 28 I'll have at least two of them, including Dubravka as one.
It looks like they blank though next week, right, Sean? So maybe a bridge too far for our team here, having an outfield Newcastle player, and also gone.
Newcastle got Brentford next week.
Have they?
Or next game week, should I say?
Oh yeah,
yeah. So they've got West Ham, then Brentford. So yeah, I mean, and the thing with the keepers is you can look at someone like Ramsdale, but I think Pope's done quite well recently. But other than De Gea is decent, just because of the amount of saves he gets. But other than that, they all average in and around 5 most on weeks, because they'll get 3 when they don't get a clean sheet, and then if they keep a clean sheet, they get 7-8 points. So there's really not a huge amount between the keepers. So yeah, the fact that you get an extra game as well. Dubravka is probably going to get 9 points in a double game week at minimum, you'd say, just because they can see a lot of shots as well. And yeah, I just think you go with the volume for a keeper rather than anything else. It's just it's a pity that I think Trippier may have been a slight option because he's obviously started well. He's on all the set pieces, but obviously he looks like he's out till probably the end of the season now. So that's a shame. But I think you're probably looking at, like Josh said, you're looking at the keeper, you're looking at St Maximin, and probably looking at Chris Wood as the 3 main options from Newcastle.
What do you think, Jack? Should we get another Newcastle player in?
No, I agree. The 3 options that Josh and Sean have just both said, I agree. And interesting that you've brought that up with the Pope thing as well. I didn't even notice that myself. So that's, I mean, he'd favour Burnley to keep. I reckon they'll keep 3 clean sheets over them 2 doubles. They're a hard team to break down, Burnley. I think.
Yeah, they know how to defend, that's for sure.
Yeah, I like. Now you've brought this out, I really like it. Yeah, I would consider Pope.
Do you go with, rather than Pope, obviously does have double, do you perhaps go with a keeper that's got double single, but he's definitely going to play in 30? So you've got the 4, you've still got the 4, but it's just spread over a longer bit. So you'd be looking at someone like Foster, but probably not. But you'd be looking at someone like Sarr or Meslier, maybe someone that's definitely going to play in 30 and has still got a double.
Yeah, I think I'd want Sarr in that situation.
Yeah, I think I think that it's obviously a bit riskier to go for Pope for sure, but as we said, I think Pope's got roughly a 60% chance of having a game in 30. Plus, you've then got a little bit of equity from Dubravka having a game as well, with like Palace playing Stoke. Obviously, that's not a given. So I think the EV line would suggest to go with Pope and Dubravka, I think, but it is riskier if you're someone who just likes to not mess with that goalie slot. I think Sarr and Dubravka works really, really well as well. And you probably play Sarr in 28 over Dubravka because he's got much better fixtures. Like I think Wolves have got 2 really good home games in 28, so I think you can still have both of them. But yeah, play Sarr 26, 27, 28, 30 basically.
Yeah, and then do you Richard go for Dubravka then, or do you go for someone that's got a decent 29 double? And then I don't know who that would be potentially. Pickford. He's got Wolves and Newcastle at home.
Does this mean we're ditching Ramsdale, though? Does it mean we're ditching Ramsdale?
The good thing about Ramsdale is if he does have this 28 double, again, he covers 4 out of the next 5 weeks. So you only really need someone for 27 and maybe 28. So like I do still really like the Ramsdale pick. I was just presented an alternative, to be honest. Like Ramsdale's amazing.
Interesting.
Oh, I've got a headache now.
Let's move on to Wolves then, because we spoke about Sarr. I don't want to get too hung up on the goalkeeper position because, like Sean said, it is giving me a bit of a headache now as well. Let's talk about some exciting attacking Wolverhampton Wanderers assets. I think you know where I'm going with this one, Josh. What do you think about Podence or whatever his name is? Because I really like him.
I think he's very exciting. I'm really surprised he's nailed down a starting position, to be honest, like consistently every single game, but he has been playing. With Wolves, you just got to look at the league table, though. Like, they don't score many goals and they don't concede many goals. So I always just steer towards the defence, to be honest. I like the cheap defenders. And I think you can pick virtually any of them and make a case for each one, to be honest. My favourite one's Sace, though.
Yeah, Jack, you're a Sace man as well, right?
Defensive assets. I've had Cody in a couple of teams. I mean, he scored the other week, so I think they're all viable options. The Wolves don't leak goals. They're a very, very good defensive team. So I think they're all viable options. And I mean, Sarr's probably, is he like the second best keeper in the game at the minute?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. So he's just, I mean, I think I've had him in from the start pretty much and just never took him out because he's so good. So.
Sean, Ed, do we have more than one Wolves? They got some... it's Wolves at the end of the day, but they got a double in 26, then they play West Ham, then they got a double in 28, then they play Everton, then they got a game in 30 against Leeds at home. Do we want more than one Wolves player?
I think you could... I think triple up's probably too much, unless you're quite far behind, and like Josh said, you go for a triple Wolves defence, all three defenders, because you know they're playing every week. They've got two doubles. And if they keep, so what have they got, 7 games before the international break? If they keep 5 clean sheets, you've got triple up on them. You're going to shoot up, especially if you tie it in with sort of the Liverpool boys as well. But yeah, I think probably 2's enough. The only reason I keep 2, especially, is a player I love from last season is Pedro Neto. And the press conference today said that essentially he's got a full squad to choose from. Now, there's some have only just come back into training, but it wouldn't surprise me if by 28, Pedro Neto is available. And I think going forward, there's not many options. I know you're a big Podence fan, Reese, but there's not many. I wouldn't pick anyone. I've seen a lot of people pick Jimenez in a lot of teams, both Fanteam and FPL. But I think they're just picking because he's got games and there's no other real options. So I think I would keep the third slot open for Neto, potentially. And I don't think you need 3 really. They've got decent fixtures, like we said, in 31 and 32 as well, Villa and Newcastle. So I'd be quite happy to go for a double Wolves defence. It's just whether or not you go a bit riskier and go for the fullbacks, or do you stick with your Cody, Sice and Kilman, who look to be assured playing every game.
That is the key question, right? Because Aït-Nouri and Marçal, first it was Marçal, then it was Aït-Nouri, then we saw a rotation the other day, I think it was. Like, who's first choice there? Do we know? Who do you think's first choice left back, Josh?
Oh, I think it's Aït-Nouri, but I'm a boring guy. I'd just always go for Kilman or Cody. I think, like, I just want the 2 starts basically, and in the doubles, it's so crucial to have the 2 starts. Like, obviously, if you only get 1, it's only a single game week. With Kilman and Cody, you just know you're getting 2 starts, and Cody gets subbed off when they're losing, actually. So, like, I don't know if that makes it better or worse to pick Kilman or Cody, but we know they both start every game. So I think it's just personal preference, really.
I think we're getting 2 then. I think we're getting 2 defenders. We'll go Cody, because Jack mentioned him. He's scored a couple of goals, surprisingly, already. He seems like it's quite overpriced at 4.9, but it's basically, like you say, it's Cody or Kilman. They're both the same price, and it's just, yeah, let's just do it. We got a question in the chat here from Faris He says, "Hi guys, will you wildcard your team and Fanteam in this game week? What do you reckon? How important would it be to save your wildcard for 31 or 32? So obviously that's what we're doing now, is picking a kind of hypothetical wildcard together. Josh, you mentioned you've made a couple of drafts already. I know, Jack, you were talking about, I'm not sure if you've done it yet in any of your teams. What do you think about the Faris's worries about game week 31 and 32?
So I think if you play a wild card this week, you have to be very sensible with it, as I keep talking about. So I think things like this double Wolves defence, where we know they play every week till 32 or 33, this is the foundations of what you need to be putting on a wild card. The teams I wild carded were all on -8s. So I think like I was getting those 8 points back and also making 5 or 6 changes on top to my team. So I feel like it was like very, very needed or wanted in those teams. And I think I'm only going to end up doing it in about 5 out of my 13 teams or something like that. So like less than half, but still a good proportion. I just think you've got to be really careful if you're wildcarding this week, and you need to be looking at least till 30, if not beyond, with what you set in this week, I think.
That's an interesting point. Jack, what do you think you're going to be doing with your teams?
When we come on earlier, I mentioned I'm quite fortunate that I have a lot of Wolves players and a lot of Liverpool players within my team already. So I'm going to hold on to my wild card, and I'm potentially going to use it. I think I'm going to use it in game week 28 and then go from there with it. But like Josh says, it's important that you look ahead, and certainly this is my first year playing season long on Fanteam anyway. So it's important that you look ahead. Certainly something that I've learned going through the season. The only time I might use a wild card this week is what we were saying a minute ago with the Pope situation. If I've got a team that's sort of out of the money and chasing, I may use the wild card this week and try and do the 4 double game weeks like we've said there with the Newcastle and Burnley players. Do something like that. Do something a bit wild and out there. But that would be the only time for me with my builds currently that I would do it, because I'm fortunate where I've got the Wolves and the Liverpool players in already.
You could have triple Burnley and triple Newcastle, and you'd have 6. Hold on, you'd have a double. Oh, this is bending my mind now. But you wouldn't have very good players, but they'd play a lot of games, right? That's what it is.
But that would be the only time I did it, if I've got something that's out of the money and I'm chasing, and yeah, that would be the only time I'm trying to do something like that.
Yeah, I'm undecided. I might wildcard, to be honest with you. This kind of little exercise is making me think it might be a good idea for my team. Maybe I'll have a little look once we've finished. Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I've got 13 teams in total, but one of them is literally just like a free hit team most weeks. But I've got one that's about 1,500, so it's sort of well in the cash at the minute. I was going to try and just keep the status quo with it, but I've just looked at the team and I've got 2 players that play in 30 currently. So I'm not going to be able to build a team that well to 30. And this week, I think I've only got about 3 or 4 doublers, and one of those is Regulon, who looks like he's probably out. So it actually might pay to sort of wild card now just to set myself up. The only thing, I've got 2 free transfers in it. So I think you always hate hitting the wild card when you've got 2 free transfers. You feel like you've wasted a transfer. But I think if you're massively behind, it's worth you might as well attack it, see what happens, and then if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But I think if your team is not very well set up, if you look at the next, like Josh has said, look up to 30 and see what your team's looking like. I don't think mine's going to be. I've got Jota in there as well, who's obviously injured. So, and I've somehow got Mopai. I don't know why. So just brought him in for the double last week, but I think it's probably primed to be wildcarded. So I think it's all team dependent. But I think if you're not getting like 6 double game weekers out this week and not many in the others as well, it probably makes sense to do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I think if you wildcard this week, like which I'm doing obviously in some of my teams, I think you have to accept that you're only going to get about 6 or 7 players out in week 30 specifically. I think you have to just forego that week, because at the end of the day, you've got to think about the rest of the season. and you can't end up with that like dead-ended 30 team that I keep talking about, where like you've got 11 players who play that week, because your team's just going to be absolute garbage for the rest of the season. So I think you'll end up with like sort of 7 players maybe in week 30, which I think I'm happy with. I think that might have been all I got anyway, to be honest, even if I was dead ending, to be honest. And then you move from there and you start to really bring in these players who've, as Sean said, some teams are going to have 10 games left going into week 31, for example, and you really want to be attacking them at that point. So it's like moving some of the players who play in 30, you want to be shifting them straight out in 31 to be getting like players who have doubles coming up, like the Newcastle Burnley thing we were talking about, where they might not be the best teams, but they have got doubles.
That would be so sweet. A double followed by a double. It's the stuff of dreams. So thanks for the question, Faris. Do smash a like on the video. Like about 20 people watching, only 4 likes. So do hit like on the video. Thank you very much for watching. We got 4 or 5 more teams, 6 more teams, I think, to go through. Southampton, an interesting proposition.
What wants to go here? Because I want to go there as well.
Go on, Jack. What are you thinking about him?
Press gets Everton this week. I've told you Frank Lampard teams are terrible against set pieces. I've seen it with my own eyes. He gets Norwich the week after that. Then he's got a double in game week 28 against Aston Villa and Newcastle. Then game week 29 we got Watford. He plays 90 minutes every week, pretty much. He's got a nice.
Oh, I know who it is. Go on, Jack. Sorry, we've lost you. I think you got muted or something, Jacko. We've lost him. Guys, can you hear him?
Yeah, I can't hear him right now, but I could hear him before. But I know who he's talking about anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah. JWP.
Best player in the world, yeah. The absolute best player in the world. So I think he's a great pick from this week on a wild card onwards. I think he's absolutely amazing. He's been an amazing Fanteam asset all season. Like let's not even kid it. It doesn't even matter what the fixtures are really with this guy. He's on all the set pieces. He gets 90 minutes. He's on penalties. He's just underpriced at 6.5, which is where he started. He's 7 million now, but he's just unbelievable, and he's got great fixtures. And I think he's one to put on the bench this week potentially with all the doublers we might have in our team. And then I want to start him every week for the next 5 or 6 weeks. They've got a good chance of having a fixture in 30 as well. So again, that's another plus point to him, I think.
Very bullish on JWP there. Sean, are you in the same camp?
Yeah, I think if I was wildcard, he'd definitely be coming in this week, just because, like Josh has said, he's on everything. He plays 90, and they've got great fixtures. But the only thing they have that they potentially struggle with is I don't know what their fixtures 31 to 33 are: Leeds, Chelsea, Arsenal. I don't know what they're like further on than that. So Chelsea, Arsenal is obviously difficult, and they haven't got any more games to rearrange. So they're one of the lower teams in terms of games left, but you could quite easily get them in until Leeds and then reassess. The other one that I would be tempted by, depending on budget and team structure, is Broja, because he's 5.2, I think he is in the game now. Yeah, 5.2, and he's playing again decent fixtures. He can't play against Chelsea in 32 again because he's the parent club, but I think you could quite easily have him out by then. And I think if you have 2 Southampton, they're playing all the way up to 30, and there's a chance they play in 30. So you could get to 30, and actually, if you've got a Southampton and you've got Burnley or Newcastle, who again could potentially play in that game, if you've got 3 Burnley or Southampton that drops in that game, you're laughing really you're ahead of the game with everyone else. And it's not like you're getting players in that have got rubbish games just to get them in for the rest of the season. Southampton especially have got really good fixtures in the run up. So I think Ward-Prowse is a definite, and I definitely if we can't think of any other striker options, which there aren't a huge amount, and especially with the value, I think Broja comes into it as well.
Yeah, Weghorst to Broja works really well in 28 as well. If you want to do that, I think that's a really nice move to do as well. You would miss Norwich at home on next Friday, but I don't think that would be the end of the world to get on Broja when you potentially will know by then whether he has a fixture in 30 as well, which is really, really good. You could even do something like King to Brozier as well in 29 maybe or something like that.
Let's go on to Burnley then, Sean, because I put Brozier in for now. What do you think about taking him out though and putting Weghorst in, like Josh said, and doing that kind of plan? Because he obviously doubles Weghorst now in Brighton, Tottenham, and then obviously Crystal Palace and Leicester as well the following week.
Yeah. I think the only thing with Weghorst is just the question mark over will he play, given I think the sort of news coming from the camp seems to be that he will be okay. But will he be playing 4 games in 2 weeks? I don't know. Don't really know how fit he is, because I'm guessing when he came from Germany, I'm guessing they had their winter break. So, and they've not got great options up there, but they have got other players that can play up there, sort of Vidra and Rodriguez. I think if I was having a Burnley asset, I would go Cornet, just because I think if he probably gets better even if Weghorst isn't playing. If he's playing up top, he's playing out of position. And I think he's looked the most threatening asset that Burnley have got. I mean, let's not get too excited about the fact it's still Burnley. So it's not a decent attacking side. But I remember back in the last season, they did sort of open up a bit and were scoring quite a few goals.
Yeah.
The only other one I consider is maybe a centre-back, just because if you're getting 4 games, and they do like a headed goal every now and then. So I'd maybe look at Tarkowski, but a lot of that will depend on team structure. But you could, if you're going to go for the Liverpool-Arsenal route, having 4 outfielders, if you had a Cornet as well, it's sort of negating that off in the fact that you're getting 2 over the 0 for one person that's playing. So, yeah, it depends how you're going to work the structure in the run-up to 30, really, and the doubles, how you sort of approach them. But I think they're getting missed out on FPL. A lot of talk today. People are not going to go with them now, but I still think like we've said, double on them, then double on Newcastle is just for the volume of games is decent.
Jack, are you back with us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's back.
Could you? I don't know if you could hear us then talking about Burnley.
Oh, I'm disappointed I missed out on the James Ward-Prowse
the
conversation. I think Josh got quite excited when I brought him up there.
I think I think that's what it was. I think he muted you because he wanted to take over.
Yeah, though, like we've mentioned with Burnley, Tarkowski's an option. As I say, with Pope is definitely an option. As I say with Burnley, they're a hard team to break down anyway, and I wouldn't be surprised if they kept 3 clean sheets out of this double here. I know there's some tough games in there against Tottenham and Leicester. The other 2 games, Brighton, Crystal Palace, I wouldn't be surprised if Burnley keep at least 2 clean sheets out of that. So yeah, Pope and Tarkowski are great options for me if we're wildcarding this week.
I think I agree with Jack in terms of investing in Burnley in that side of the pitch rather than the Weghorst Cornet side of the pitch, if that makes sense. But I think obviously traditionally that's probably where you would say they get their points. For me, Weghorst, new to the league, okay, but they probably have signed him to play 90 minutes every week, I'm sure, but it doesn't always work out. Let's have a look at the defenders. Jack mentioned Tarkowski, 5.1, Ben Mee, 5 million, Connor Roberts, potentially first choice right back now at 4.5 million. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Have you boys got strong feelings about either Weghorst or Cornet? Because we're getting down to the dregs now. We just got Brighton, Norwich, Watford and Brentford left. I put them both in for now because they're cheap, right? Obviously we don't want 3, do we? We don't want a defender as well. Just what's your thoughts about that situation in general, Josh?
I think with Burnley, I'd go with, if I'm going with Pope, I'd have 2. So one Pope, 1 outfield. If I don't have Pope, I think I'd just go with 1 and I don't really mind where it is on the pitch, to be honest. Similar to Villa, I think like Weghorst's really good, and I think the centre backs are good as well. So I think I'd favour one of those 2, maybe.
Sure.
If I was choosing one, it's so difficult because you don't know. If I was just picking one out of all of them, I'd pick Cornet, just because I think he's the most explosive. I don't think he is assured of playing 90 minutes. I think there is still an injury that they're managing. But I just think I think if you look at the sort of all the stats, sort of the XG and stuff like that, he's the one that is the most likely to be involved. But it's just, are there 5 other better options in those midfielder slots? And we've obviously got Salah's a definite. We look like Ramsey's probably a definite. Rafinha's a definite. So you've then, and if you've got JWP as well, you've only got 1 slot available really. And there's obviously a lot of people that could be. It could be Bowen, it could be Cornet, it could be, well, there's just Saka. There's just so many. So it's just whether or not actually you're better going for the striking option. But if it was me, I think I would go Cornet. Just because of the double-double. I think that's the draw for him for the first 2 weeks at least, and then you can assess what's going on after that if they've got a game in 30.
I think that's a vote for Cornet. Then we'll put him in. I've taken Verkos out just so that we've got 2 spots left. I've left Brozier in, but I don't think we had any real conviction behind it. So I'm sure we can take him out if we need to. It's Brighton next, and we've probably got to wrap this up in about 10 minutes. We've got Brighton, Norwich, Watford and Brentford left. So not teams we need to talk at length about, really. Just really quickly, Sean, assets from Brighton on the wild card.
I mean, they've got good fixtures in the first 3. They've got Burnley, Villa and Newcastle. That's 3 good fixtures. They've then got a double, but that double is Liverpool Tottenham. And they've got Man City potentially in 30, so it's obviously not great anyway. You're not going to have a keeper because there's too many options. Defensively, they're decent, but Dunk's suspended. Would you go with them anyway? Probably not. We've already talked about the midfield. There's just no space for a midfielder, and so the striking options is where you're short of. You don't really want Mopai, do you?
No.
He's okay, but so I don't think there is anyone you go for Brighton really.
Agreed.
Yeah, Josh, what do you think?
Not on a wild card, no. But if people have Sanchez or Cucurella or something like that, I'd hold on to it for sure. I think Cucurella's another one like Norgard who just plays 90 minutes. He's a 4.5 midfielder. He's absolutely fine, but nothing on a wild card race.
Yeah, strange Cucurella's a midfielder in this, right? Compared to official FPL, who's a defender. What's that? 4.5 million. Oh, so it's not too bad at all. Fair play. Yeah, I agree. A good team, good players, but not really someone you target on the wild card personally. So we've done Burnley, Norwich next. The Canaries. Our resident Timo Pukki lookalike. Jack, I'm talking about. I don't know if you remember. That's me trying to have a joke.
Mate. I'll take it.
What do you think?
I've been called a couple of things this week. Cooper Cuff and now Timo Pukki. It's brilliant.
In all seriousness, he's doing all right. He's getting points. This guy, Pukki, right?
No Pukki, no party for the for the weekly monsters. No, don't just. I don't want nothing from Norwich. If we're wild carding, sorry, just out. Easy as that for me.
Yeah, I think it's that. I think yeah, you're right. I knew. Let's be honest, Josh. You see you nodding your head.
No doubles, no game in 30, no Norwich for me.
And they start with Liverpool.
Sean, you're in agreement?
Yeah, I think I've got Gunn in one of my season-long teams who's fine if you're holding him because he plays in 27 if you've got a Ramsdale or something. But yeah, you wouldn't be bringing anyone in on a wild card.
I was quite disappointed to see that Brentford don't have any doubles. Because they play in 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Decent fixtures, but no doubles, right? Thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, I think they're the most likely team to not blank for the rest of the season, actually, because I know a lot of teams are going to blank in 33 potentially as well. But I think Brentford are the ones who are just really, really likely to play just once every single week for the rest of the season. Again, Norgard's a fine hold. Tony, I have no idea if he's going to play or not. He's just been AWOL the last 2 weeks. But again, I think I might hold him if I had him just because he's a weird price. But they're not coming in on wild card, I don't think.
Jack?
Agree exactly what Josh just said there. If I've got Tony, I might hold on to him, but I don't know if he's fallen out of favour after his little Dubai incident. Not too sure.
Oh, maybe that's what it is.
Maybe it is. I don't know. Where he's done that little video. I don't know.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, if Tony was playing, I think he would be a perfect third striker in the wildcard team, just because, like Josh has said, he plays every week, and his fixtures to start with, other than Arsenal, he's then got Newcastle, Norwich, Burnley. That's probably three of the best fixtures you can get, and he plays in 30. But yeah, I don't think you could probably put him on a wildcard just because you don't know. You can't be with the blank for Liverpool and Arsenal next week. You can't be holding rotation risks on a wildcard. You've got to play it safe. And I still don't think you can necessarily with him at the moment.
So, I've put Weghorst back in because we've literally got one spot left and we're down to Watford. And we're not going to be having Dennis and King, I'm sure. But do we have one of them? Jack, I saw that you forgave Dennis last week. Was it last week?
Well, I didn't forgive him. I just couldn't get him out of my lineups without taking the hit. These two just infuriate me for this game. Like, I want to get rid of them both, but I can't. And we've got two double game weeks coming up, so they start off in game week 26 against Villa and Palace. Then they've got Man United after that, and then they got Arsenal and Wolves double game week after that, in game week 28. I think I'd want King just because of he takes the penalties and things like that. Dennis is probably more the exciting player of the two, but we're going to have to bring one in. I think I'm bringing in King, but I don't know if Sar's back. Is he back yet?
I was thinking that the other day because 6.2 Sar, I like that.
Sar's an option, isn't he, as well? But defensively, I still don't really want any part of Watford. I know Hodgson's gone there and steadied the ship a little, but they're still a really bad team at the back. So it's King, Dennis, and Sar, really, if you're going to bring one in.
Yeah,
I'd take King.
Yeah, I was looking at Sar's minutes the other day because I was considering him. I think he played 45 minutes in the last league game. I'm not sure if that was starting or ending the game, but I'm assuming that means he's back now, right? He maybe plays 60 or 70 minutes in the next game and then start playing 90s. Josh, what's your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, I've been building some wildcards, and I just couldn't believe I was still staring at Josh King's name after I'd built the wildcards. I was like, why am I doing this to myself? Like it's like some form of torture or something. But yeah, he was still there. The strikers are so rubbish on the game. I think you just want as cheap as possible, and the likes of Brozier, Weghorst, King all fit the bill. They've all got extra fixtures in the next few weeks. I just think it's fine to pick him. I'm worried that Sar takes penalties off King, actually. I think that's not confirmed which one of those will have penalties. Sar took them before he got injured, but obviously Josh King's really good at penalties, so I think either one of them could have penalties, but Watford might never get one, to be honest, so we might never find out. But, yeah, I really don't mind the Sar call, but I like I said, I had King on some wild cards that I built, so yeah.
Shawnee Boy?
Yeah, I think from what we talked about, I think Kane and Brozier in this team are probably pretty nailed in the fact that they're decent options, good fixtures, not blanking, all that sort of thing. I think the third spot is literally, it could be anyone. It could be a Watford striker. It could be Weghorst. I've just looked and I wouldn't even be adverse to putting in someone like Rodrigo from Leeds because they've got a poor double this week. But you know what Leeds are like. Leeds will they could lose 6-1, but they're going to keep attacking. They've then got Tottenham. They've got Leicester Villa in the double in 28, and then they've got Norwich and Wolves, and they're definitely playing in 30. It's another one. You could even, I've said about him, there's people are picking him just because he's there. He's another one that you could just pick just because he's got a game and he's playing 7 games. He's definitely playing 7 games before the international break, a bit like the Leeds team. So it could be that you just pick that third spot and you just go for pure volume of games. Burnley have got 6 for definite, maybe 7 with the FA Cup game. Watford have got 6. Probably only got 6 because they've got Everton in the thing. So perhaps that third spot, you just go pure volume and just go for the person you think is going to play the most games and maybe has the best fixture in 27 because you're going to have to play them. Maybe that's how you look at it.
Interesting, right? So what we're gonna do now? We got one spot left, and we've got all our chips left, right? Sean, you got your essential and your veto. Boys, you're all the same. I've only got my essential left, so I'm gonna play it right now. We've got one spot left, and there it is. João Cancelo comes in as the essential. I was worried about it at the start. I think it was right at the start we had Man City. We chose not to have him in. There's not been a player since which I was disagreeing with as much. So he's gone in. Jack, we're going to get to you next. You've got one veto and one essential. So essentially you could change any player from this team that you want and replace it with any player that you would prefer.
So I want to. We have got the money to do it. I want to take out Van Dijk, and I want to put in Tierney.
Interesting. I like that.
Just his laugh.
I like that. I like the compromise.
I think it's just so up for grabs that one slot. I think it's a genuine coin toss between the Liverpool asset or the Arsenal asset. So I'm more than fine either way. That's why I was laughing. I think it's just so close.
I just think you get set pieces, don't you, with Tierney as well. So I like what he offers more than Van Dijk.
Definitely going forward. Yeah, I think no question about it. Go on then, Sean. We'll finish with Josh. Sean, do you want to go next?
I'm just looking. If I'm looking at the team now, and then we look at what we've got for 30. So we definitely have Ramsdale, obviously injury dependent, etc. But we'd have Ramsdale playing. We'd have the two Wolves defenders. That'd be 3, wouldn't it? Rafinha would be 4. Ramsey 5. Who else have we got? Tierney 6. So we'd have 6 playing before we do any sort of moves. And we potentially, if Southampton Burnley drops in there, we've got 4 over those two.
We'd have about 12, wouldn't we, Sean? I think.
Yeah.
Burnley, Southampton.
Yeah. So I think we would have 10 as it stands playing. So you could actually, even if you've got rubbish assets in there that are still playing, you could actually look to move them around even then. So it's not as though we need to try and future-proof it. I think the only one that I would probably change either Dubravka or one of the Burnley attackers. The defence for me is fine. You've got the two best defenders in the game. You've got the block Wolves and you've got Arsenal. You've got block Arsenal effectively. You've got 2 Arsenals. So the only thing will be you'll definitely have the Wolves, Man City. Those 3 would be the defence in 27 because you'd lose Ramsdale, Trent, and Tierney. So yeah, it's just whether or not would you change the keeper because you'd be playing Ramsdale in 26, 29, and 30. So you need a keeper for 27 and 28, don't you? Effectively, maybe not even 28 if Ramsdale doubles. So really, you want to pick a goalkeeper that's probably got the best game in. And saying that Newcastle have got Brentford, so it's not as though. And you're covering yourself if Ramsdale doesn't then get the double in 28. You've then got Brighton and Southampton. So yeah, I would probably look at just either Weghorst or Cornet. Have we got much money in the bank? I'm guessing we've probably got
2.4 million in the bank. Oh wow!
So we go.
Where does that come from? That's good.
8.4, or Cornet 8.1. I'd be tempted to go with Weghorst to. Do you know what? I said it during it. I said people are going for it just because he's playing. I'd be tempted to go Jimenez.
I've already done it. I knew just because say it. I've already done it for you. I knew you were going to say it.
Just because, and I think you've then got the option if he's looking crap or something happens. You've got double, single, double. If you then want to switch to Arsenal in 29, they've got a double, and then they play in 30 again. So I think you're going for a Wolves player that's got 5 of his 7 games in the first 3 weeks. So it then does open up the possibility to go. You could even go to Calvert-Lewin in 29. I think it gives you a bit more time to sort of look at how game week 30 falls as well. I'd say sort of spreads the team over more teams as well.
I really like it as an upgrade, isn't it? It's an obvious upgrade, Weghorst to Jimenez. Josh, you got the final say.
I genuinely think I'm going to leave it how it is genuinely. I think it's the perfect, sensible. I think it's the exact example of what we need to do if we're wildcarding right now. I think you need to just be sensible. And I think this is a really sensible team where you can roll the transfer next week and you can have 2 transfers in 28 to bring in some extra doublers. So if Chelsea, Arsenal gets thrown in there, you can bring in a Chelsea player because they've got really, really good fixtures from 28 onwards. Yeah. You can bring in an extra Arsenal player or 2 to future-proof it for 30 again. So again, you can just add an extra asset. So, and I think Cornet to St. Maximin in 28 would be a really good move as well. And I think that's like the placeholder there almost. So yeah, I just love the double Wolves defense, to be honest. I'm really happy with that. I think they're just great for the next 5-6 weeks.
We'll wrap it up there then, gentlemen. It's the perfect wildcard team. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Guys, thanks for coming on as well. Like, it's been fun, right?
Thanks.
Yeah, always good to chat. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Bro, it just remains for me to ask you guys that are watching, don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe if you are new or if you are old. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Good luck in Game Week 26, most importantly.